Ron Wyden. I don't know if he's the ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee, at least on the Democratic side. Here he is asking the trade representative, Jameson Greer, like, what's the plan here? What was, like, did you guys think that nobody would respond to this? And why wouldn't a country respond to a 54% tariff on their goods that seemingly has come out of, that is completely willy-nilly? Go ahead.
You want as we enter into these negotiations. What's the status
of China? As you know, that's a big market for us in the Pacific Northwest. What's the status of discussions there? I don't see much progress. What I see is it looks like it's going to escalate some more and hurt our consumers and our small businesses in our part of the world.
Well, Senator, unfortunately, China for many years seems to be choosing its own path on market access. Again, they have agency in this. They elected to announce retaliation. Other countries did not. Other countries signaled that they'd like to find a path forward on reciprocity. China has not said that. And we will see where that goes. I think we need to work with our closest friends to make sure that we have trading arrangements that work. And if the Chinese are open, we'll see what. But they haven't signaled that at all. So I don't think that's in the very near term with China.
I just am concerned that there's no strategy at all. I'm committed. We understand in the Pacific Northwest what the stakes are. To have a smart, tough strategy. I don't see any strategy at all, and you really haven't said much about what the strategy is this morning.
Well, that's about as accurate as you can get. Summation of it. I mean, to say, we punched the biggest kid on the block.
Yeah.
In the face, and this guy had the temerity to put up his hands and say, I'm going to punch you back. I mean, they didn't have to do that. And aside from the fact that China reacted in the most predictable manner possible, did you have any plan for that?
Yeah.
No.
They thought they could bully China. They thought they could bully the other economic powerhouse in a increasingly multipolar world.
The place that's actually building things.
Right. You thought you could bully China economically? Like, the only way we get to bully any people anymore is with our military, basically.
I mean, look, we have instituted 10% tariffs on China that started under the first Trump administration. The Biden administration expanded it slightly into specific areas. And you come to agreements with countries. You say, we need our own chip manufacturing for national security reasons. Hem and haw. We'll give you this, we'll give you that. You make what you call a deal, I guess.
And that would also, you could just keep the CHIPS Act in place and then maybe do tariffs in that way, because
it's all just sort of spite out of Trump's. I mean, it's just so ridiculous.
He wants to undo he hates Biden way less than Obama, so maybe he does keep some parts of the CHIPS Act in, but and we all know why that is. But that would make sense with tariffs, right? If you were to have an industrial policy and build up our capacity to make semiconductors here domestically, and then increase tariffs on imported semiconductors, but you would first have to develop that capacity. Like, it's just insane because it's not meant to be a trade policy or an economic policy. It's about Trump consolidating power and everybody having to come to him. That's what he wants. Let's cut a deal. I'm the deal maker, the art of the deal. But he doesn't understand fundamentally what a trade deficit even is.
I think when he says something like China has agency, that's what they resent.
Yes.
They have resentment towards that. And Peter Navarro wrote a book about confronting the dragon, and it was all about China. Peter Navarro is a point man on these tariffs. I think what they're doing is they want to sink China, and they are willing to put the world economy through a massive amount of pressure to do so.
The problem is that they're not going to sink China.
Yes, I agree with that.
The problem is that they don't seem to have updated their numbers, because this is not 2004. Like I said, China's exports to this country amount to 12% of what they export. I think they're going to be able to make that up in other parts of the country. I mean, of the world, I should say. Play this clip of Maggie Hassan. Here is Jameson Greer essentially saying that, we're not going to stop no matter what happens here. Now, I guess sort of outlining the fact that you're willing to have 10% inflation in the country indicates to other countries that we don't care what happens to our economy. We're doing this, and it might be a negotiation stance. But again, this isn't even contemplating. This is just contemplating what happens from the tariffs that Trump imposes. This is not contemplating what happens if China basically says, hey, you can push back on this and we can come to a new arrangement in terms of trade, because the other part of this is that we're looking to sell stuff to other countries. And so they could put up higher trade barriers and destroy businesses and industries in this country. Farmers, for instance. And then it just becomes a series of bailouts. This is fascinating.
Sales tax is increasing prices for families. It's also causing huge losses in Americans' retirement savings. Ambassador Greer, would the administration reverse course if the president's tariffs led to 10% inflation?
Senator, the president is fixed in his purpose. This trade deficit and the offshoring and loss of manufacturing jobs is something that's persisted for too long, and it's dangerous.
I understand your justification for the policy, even though there are some very contradictory justifications coming out of the administration. But my question is, what's the inflation rate where you guys would reverse course? 10% inflation that I just asked you about, that is higher inflation than we saw at the peak of the COVID economic crisis. But you aren't going to say here today that you would reverse course even if you created inflation as high as we had at the peak of the COVID economic crisis.
I think the most serious inflation we saw was during the Biden administration. When we did tariffs in the first term, inflation went down. I just don't, it's not going to be a one-to-one. Inflation about how much money you're putting into the supply.
Well, let's just be really clear that the Trump administration is here today to say that even if inflation hits Americans' pocketbooks at 10% because of these tariffs, then the Trump administration is still going to go charging ahead. So, Ambassador, would the administration reverse course if the president's tariffs caused a 50% stock market crash, which would hurt Americans' retirement savings even more than they've been hurt in the last 10 days or so?
Senator, the fundamentals of the economy are so strong. We had 228,000 jobs last month. We have 9,000 additional manufacturing jobs from
So
the
again,
month before.
your answer is even if the stock market crashes 50%, which is how much the stock market crashed in the Great Recession, you're not going to say here today that you would reverse course even if you crash the stock market and harm retirement savings as drastically as happened during the Great Recession in 2007.
Senator, your hypotheticals are not consistent with the history we have seen with the use of tariffs.
My hypotheticals are based on the fact that a lot of Americans are looking at their 401ks today and wondering how much of a lifestyle change they are going to have, or whether they're going to be able to retire when they plan to, because of the recklessness and haphazard nature of the Trump administration's imposition of tariffs. Nothing was thought out about this. This has been a haphazard, incompetent effort, and it's showing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I mean, that's the point. Again, certain tariffs can work in certain contexts if you have some type of larger plan. But this just seems to be, we're going to do it and see what happens. And that's why you can't find two different administration officials who are saying the same thing about it. Even now, even like a week later, they still have not been able to get on the same page because, I mean, Trump just must be just sitting up there, rolling around on his bed and literally just like, do this. I mean, there's no plan. They don't even have the same spin on the whole thing.
It's robots, and you're going to have jobs replacing the robots? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's just also facts that the Biden administration, I saw Crystal, a friend of the show, tweeted this out, had the strongest manufacturing recovery since the 1950s. can't find the source for this graph, so we don't need to put it up, but I trust Crystal, and it matches other data.
Oh, no, it was,
Okay.
the manufacturing grew significantly.
Yeah.
Manufacturing jobs grew under Biden.
I'm just being extra careful just because we don't have it. But yeah, I mean, this is exactly the data that we've seen, is that it grew under Biden. And that's because it was paired with a serious effort at industrial policy. Chips, which didn't go as far as I wanted in many ways that we wanted it to, right? It's a lot of subsidies as opposed to more centralized state planning, but it still did help create manufacturing jobs. It's just a fact.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.